It was Ellie's birthday, and she was really excited to be finally turning 10. This was going to be the start of something great for Ellie. Her party was like every child dreams of. There was music playing, party poppers popping, banners placed on every wall. And a huge cake was placed in the centre of a table filled with party food. It had 10 candles placed around it, and bright vibrant colours were dotted everywhere you looked, and everyone was having fun. Ellie and her friends were trying to see how long they could keep a balloon from touching the floor, and so far it wasn't going very well. There was music playing in the background, which was almost drowned out by the laughter from the children. Ellie was having a great time at her party. Then the music came to a sudden stop. She looked up to see her parents stood by the speaker.
Okay, everyone, it's time for Ellie to open her presents. Come on, gather round. Ellie, why don't you pick the one you want to open first?
Said Ellie's mum, Karen. Everyone sat in a circle, with Ellie in the centre. A small pile of presents lay at the side of her, all different shapes and sizes. She chose the smallest out of them all. It had white wrapping paper with silver glitter swirls around, with a purple ribbon on top. She reached out her hand to unwrap the ribbon from around the present.
Wait, Mark, where did you put the camera?
Said Karen, Ellie's mum.
I think I left it upstairs. Ellie, stay there, we'll be right back.
Said Mark, Ellie's dad. Ellie stayed there staring at the gift in her hands. She gave it a little shake next to her ear, listening out for a clue as to what was inside. Then, the sound of the doorbell ringing ran throughout the house. Ellie thought for a moment of what to do, before getting up and going to the bottom of the tall wooden stairs.
Mum? Dad? There's somebody at the door.
Ellie shouted up to her parents.
Okay, go open it, Ellie. It'll probably be your Auntie Kath, late as usual.
With that, Ellie went down the corridor to the front door. She reached up and pulled down the handle, opening the door. There were big red shoes, too dark in colour. Pants that were stretched, ripped and torn. A jacket that was frayed, and the colours faded. It had a flower in its pocket, withered and brown. Its face was chalk white, which could have been mistaken for wax if it wasn't for the bits of skin showing through the makeup. And those eyes are too dark, a void of emotion staring down at Ellie. And that mouth doesn't look like makeup. The smell that filled Ellie's nostrils as she stood facing this creature was sweat and dust, as if it hadn't seen the light of day in years. Is this creature really here for the party?
Who are you? Are you here for my party?
Ellie asked the dishevelled figure in front of her. It was silent for a moment, and then she heard a blood-churning noise that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up straight. She looked up to find the source of the noise. It was laughing, but yet it wasn't happy. It started to move slowly, but with purpose towards her. Its body was stiff, dripping from head to toe, making its baggy clothes stick to its chest as it walked. Ellie was frozen in place. She was confused. This figure looked familiar, yet like a total stranger to her. She'd seen a character like this before, in one of her books, yet it looked nothing like this twisted thing. She remembers her mother telling her it was called a clown, but clowns are supposed to be happy and playful. There is nothing happy and playful about this clown. But yet, the scariest thing about it was not its looks or its voice. The thing that sent chills down Ellie's spine was the sound of jingle bells that was sewn into its ruined clothing as it moved slowly towards her, its feet scraping along the floor, leaving a damp trail as it crept towards Ellie. As Ellie looked at its inhumane structure, all that you could see in her eyes was fear. She shut her eyes tight, as that's what her parents told her to do when she was having a nightmare. That was all it was, right? A nightmare? Ellie didn't know what was going on. She slowly began to reopen her eyes and suddenly wished she hadn't. It was within touching distance now. Ellie backed away as far as she could till she felt her back hit the solid wall behind her. It continued to move slowly towards her. It reached out one of its monstrous arms, the water dripping off and forming a puddle on the hard wooden floor. Gloves that used to be white were stained with red, covered its hands. On its hand lay an old wooden box. It's dark in colour, and the sides are smashed. Parts of the wood have started to rot and decay on the corners. Ellie wondered, could this really be her birthday present? She wasn't sure, but nothing was making sense to her at this moment. As the clown drew nearer to Ellie, she didn't know what else to do but run. She started to run down the corridor, adrenaline pumping through her veins as her legs carried her away from this strange clown. She turned around to see if she'd escaped the clown. Goosebumps formed on her arms as she let out a loud cry. She was petrified. The clown was sprinting after her at an alarming pace, laughing as it did, continuing to make Ellie's blood churn. It carried the box in one hand, and in the other it was carrying a large blade that shone as the light hit it. Ellie could see the clown getting further and further away the more she ran. But Ellie was too focused on checking the clown wasn't behind her that she failed to see the chair leg sticking out. She tripped, striking her head on the table as she fell.